Good evening, class. That is, if there's anyone ever gets to watching this video. I'm going to do the third in a series of short videos about tuning and the basic maintenance of your instruments and the basics for instruments that people use in old-time American music. A lot of people take this music up in middle age, and some of them are already experienced musicians, so these won't apply so much to them, but if people are coming to music new as an adult and later age, then they very often will have skipped the basics that those of us who start when we're children learn, so basics like tuning. And today we're going to be looking at changing strings. I'll do one of these for the fiddle and the banjo as well, but today changing strings. So I'm going to change a guitar string in front of the camera and show you how easy it is. I do know people, or I have come across people who have been playing even for a number of years, and they will take their instrument to a music shop and pay to have someone change the strings. Fine, but you need to, if you have the luxury of doing that and you live next door to a music shop and you can afford it, great. But there's really no reason that anyone should be doing that. Maybe the first time you change strings and get them to show you. But again, with all these things, nothing at all to be scared of. So I will get a guitar and show you how it's done. Right. Okay, so I'm going to change just one string. I'm not going to change them all, because otherwise we'll be here till kingdom come. There's a couple of useful tools. Well, the main useful tool that you can use is a pair of pliers, like needle nose type pliers, and they can be used for a couple of purposes. Now, the first one is to pull the peg out of the bag. I'll show you that in a minute. But first stage, changing strings. Tune it down. We'll change the bottom E string. And some people have string winders, the geared string winders. I tend not to use them. You even get electronic ones go. Anyway, so you want to loosen the string right off and do them one at a time. Don't take them all off at once. Just change them one at a time. So you just unravel it from here. It's quite self-explanatory. Just unravel the string, and I would say never tie a knot in the end there, because when you tie a knot, it's more difficult to take the string off again. You shouldn't be a need to actually knot the string around the peg head and geared peg head. So we take that string out carefully. Now the next step is we want, in this type of bridge, there's usually plastic or bone or wood or brass pegs, always is, and they peg the string into place. So what I'm going to use the pliers for, they can be a bit stiff to pull out. Well, I could pull that one out with my fingers, but if you can't, a little pair of pliers, just give it a tug carefully, but again, don't be afraid to do that. Obviously, you'll know if you're putting too much force. So either pull it out with the fingers if it'll come. If it's a bit stiff, direct pressure upwards, out it comes. Like pulling a tooth out. Not that I've ever tried that for myself or anyone else, but had it done to me. Okay, you see a little ball, what they call a ball end. So the peg pushes the ball down into this hole in the bridge, which then goes through the bridge plate, and the peg holds it in place that way. So I'm going to discard the old string, take out a new string. New string. Now it's just worth mentioning, different strings have different cores and wraps and stuff. Most strings are hex core, so they shouldn't unravel. This particular one's a round core, so I'll talk about, they need a slightly different treatment, but again it's quite simple, I'll show you. Anyway, it's this bit's the same. So we just pop the peg back in, and now there's a little groove on the peg. That's a bit tuned up. That groove you want on the string side, so space for the string. Pop the peg back in, so you can feel a little click. You don't want to force it so you break the guitar or anything, but just firm pressure with the groove on the string. Now pull the string up a little bit like that. Now you take the end of the string, thread it through the hole in the geared peg head. Incidentally, if the cogs on, see there's little cogs on if you've got open geared pegs like this, tuning pegs, if it's a bit stiff or anything, sometimes you just put a tiny drop of olive oil or something on there just to lubricate it. Anyway, so I'm going to pull the string through so that we have enough slack to wrap it round a couple of times. And in video 1 I showed you about putting graphite on the nut slot to help prevent build up of friction, help make tuning a lot easier. So I'm going to do that. Now we don't want to. This is something that will actually come with practice. You want the string to wrap around the peg 2 or 3 times or something. So you don't want to be winding forever and have it sort of wrapping around itself on the peg. Now I was taught basically wind the string downwards. So you go through the hole in the peg and it's spiraling in a couple of layers down. So let's see how we go with this. You don't want too much or too little really. If you have too little, there's more chance of the string slipping. If you have too much, it gets very clumsy. Thread that through. Keep winding it round. I don't, because of the graphite in there, I tend to take most of the slack off when the string's not actually in the groove, so I'm holding it away from the groove. Now, you can feel the tension. It's going to lift it above the groove and tighten it up and let it drop into the groove there. So one new string, we'll get that up to tension. As you tighten it, just make sure that these pegs don't pop out again, so if you see it moving, just give it a little push. Hold it in place. Now, I talked about different shaped cores. Some makes a string a round chord. They're supposedly tonal differences, but I'm not going to go into that. Hex chord ones, there's no chance of the wrap unwinding. If the wrap starts unwinding, you can basically it can run down the string, cause a bit of a problem, and change the tone. But anyway, so I've got this up to tension. What I'm going to do now is just bend. This is only with, you don't have to do this with the unwound ones or hex core. Most of you will be using hex core, or most of the main ones. These are just kind of a retro type string, pyramid, Western folk, and I thought I'd give them a try. Sort of round cord. I've used them once before actually, they're quite nice. So I've bent the string over that way, and that prevents any danger of the string unwinding. Once it's wrapped and there's tension there anyway, that won't be a problem. It's just if you take it off again, there might be. So, and then I'm going to use the clipper parts of these, clip the string. There. Now we've got a new E string on. It's worth. Now it's just one thing that's worth mentioning. Particularly on your strings that are unwound, the end of them is very sharp, and you can quite easily stab yourself, and it'd be a needle prick. Once I've clipped those, I tend to bend those over as well, like I did with that E string there, just to prevent yourself catching your fingers. Quite painful. Anyway, hopefully this will help some people who are unconfident about changing their own strings.